Good morning. Today we have great guest, my frequent guest, Brian Levy with Manchester Place and Cambridge Caregivers. I've got Christy Byerly with Senior Living Specialist. And Christy, you are a social worker.
I am.
And work with seniors. Brian, we're all about seniors. And what we're talking about today is when you work with a senior, when you work with a client, you're working with the entire family. So it's a family affair. It's a family situation. And so that's what we're talking about today. And just want to get some great input as a social worker. And we all have a love for our seniors and want to respect our seniors in all decision making. But I heard something on the radio yesterday which kind of tipped off this topic. I heard a senior talking about how insulted he was that he was called vulnerable and the weakest generation. And he talked about being the greatest generation, that he has lived through World War II, that he lived through the Depression when they had nothing to eat. He walked to school 6 miles every day, school and back. So what's a silly old virus? So it really made me think, they aren't always these weak links. They've, smart people. They've lived a lifetime, lived through things that we have not begun to understand. And so we want to respect and honor them in the decision making. But it is also part about working with the family too. So we're going to talk about just a question. Dad is 96. He has fallen several times, is adamant that he stays in his home. He's got 3 children that are like, Dad, let's all work together so you can stay at your home. The other 3 kids say, it's time to find a place to move, Dad. So take it from here. What do we do?
Right? When working with seniors like that, you never want to take away their independence. That's when they start to decline. So what can you do to continue their independence and still help them? Whether you take the car keys away, if you take the car keys away, they can still go to the grocery store. They can still walk the aisles. They don't have to take the electric cart. So feeding, for instance, it's mealtime. Instead of feeding them, let them take 2 hours to put the food in their own mouth. But once you take that independence away, they decline.
Well, and I think people don't understand, like even Medicare, when somebody is say they've had a wound or they're healing from surgery and they need Medicare home health. Medicare is paying for home health for them to do wound care 3 times a week. And they're considered homebound. But they can still go to the church. They can still drive to the store. They can still go to the post office. And so we forget that our seniors, maybe they're losing the ability to do certain things, but it doesn't mean they're losing their faculties.
Right.
And they should be in the decision-making, and the family should be in decision-making mode and just work together. So let's do an example. Okay. I know senior living specialists are very well known in Dallas. You all have been around for how long?
12 years.
12 years. And so wonderful company that when somebody does need to make decisions on what do we do? Where do we go? Where do we turn? Do we honor Dad? Do we just make him move? Do we put the house on the market? Talk about what is that original conversation that you have with families, Christy?
Okay, sure. I think it depends on where they are when you have that initial conversation. A lot of my families are in hospital or rehab, and it's going to have to be a quick decision. Sometimes we get calls that, maybe in 6 months from now, we might need a place for Dad. So you have to start where they are, I think, and learn all about their family, and the children that are involved, or the siblings, or the spouse, and then just talk to them about what's going to be the best option whenever that option is. I think that communication between the family is going to be huge, even though that doesn't always happen like we would like. But I think there's steps that you can take to prevent having a crisis mode, which is what we try to avoid at senior living specialists, is having that backup plan. Even if it stays a backup plan, you never have to use it. At least that takes some of the stress off of knowing what the next step is when you're in that crisis mode. You know, dad had a stroke or dad fell, he's got rehab, you know, everything else. And usually that's when a lot of other parts of your life are busy and hectic too.
And you don't want to make these plans in a crisis mode.
Right.
You know, you want to pre-plan. You know, when you're pregnant, you have 9 months to prepare. You know, when you're applying for college, you have a couple of years to take those tests and visit colleges. And so it's really the same. We have to look at aging in place as a long-term decision, not a knee-jerk decision. So, okay, let's just say you meet with a family and the kids are you've got one child that is totally opposed to spending a dime of dad's money, feels Medicare should pay for everything. The other child says, no, dad needs more care and he's got money in the bank. So how do you handle that kind of situation?
I think it's important in that type of situation to lean on the experts. So if they are at rehab, you've luckily got the doctor, you've got a social worker, you've got the physical therapist staff, the nurses, the aides that are making a team decision, a team recommendation. And that's, I mean, you should go with that recommendation, I feel like. But then you have people that are home and that they don't have that team around them. So it can be really helpful for children to get involved, going to their doctor's appointments, seeing if there's a social worker on staff at that doctor's office, reaching out to any other specialists to see how we can kind of get a plan in place, or at least know what's going to be available, what options are available. I think you can't have that conversation too soon. And like you said, it's an ongoing conversation. It's not just like a one-time conversation.
And say an adult, you know, they've made a decision that the eldest son is going to be the medical power of attorney for decision making. Brian, I know you and I working in home care, you know, we have witnessed the adult female alcoholic that just wreaks havoc on our staff, on the patient. And we've been told by the power of attorney, Sister Susie is not allowed in the home.
Right.
It caused so much stress for mom. And so talk about that too. Like, what about these families, these elderly that know they've got that wayward child who is not in charge? How do you what are the best ways to deal with those adult children that are not coping?
We still have to be respectful of the whole family, knowing that there's a power of attorney, whether it's medical or fiduciary, and know that's going to be pretty much the final decision. I work with multiple families. I have one family who has 6 siblings, and they all want to be the decision maker. They all want to tour the house. They all want to ask questions. So I try to be respectful and ask for one point of contact, one decision maker, but make everybody feel included. I mean, really, at the end of the day, what's best for mom and dad, you know?
And I think too, for communities, group homes, even in private duty, you know, if you do have that one child that is the decision maker and is the power of attorney, I think it's good to have a family meeting and have a moderator or a mediator and just have a meeting on just as simple as mom's been put on hospice, but that doesn't mean we're just giving her a morphine drip, you know.
Like you said, meet with the family, and our role, meeting with the family has multiple meanings, including getting to know personalities, getting to know who's the alcoholic, who's bipolar, who's the black sheep, who mom really doesn't want there but is there, and then we can kind of get to know the players. I mean, it's happened to me before where I've met with families multiple times to tour the home. Great family, lovely family, they move in and then come to find out that they're cray-cray.
Yeah.
And the resident's phenomenal, but the family is impeding our ability to care for dad. And it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So get to know who you're dealing with, you know, not just the resident or the patient, if you will,
Right.
but the whole family.
And let's talk too about the cost, because the cost for private duty, of course, is more expensive usually round the clock care than being in a group home or being in an assisted living. And there are benefits to both. So what do you do, Christy, about the siblings that do not agree with how much they're going to spend on mom and dad? And that's a tough one because care is expensive, you know.
It is.
So talk to me about, how do you deal with somebody that you know has money and one adult child wants Medicaid to pay the bill?
Yes. That's a tough conversation. And I think that, I've experienced that in my own personal life. My grandmother's been sick and she went to rehab and needed caregivers at home. And there's my mom and my uncle, and there was not disagreement, but like, how much is this going to cost? So they had to come to an agreement, but then we still had to turn around and tell my grandparents, well, VA is going to pay for it, or your long-term sure, even though we know how we're paying for it. I think there's kind of two things: is one, getting the family together, and then how you present it to the senior. And it is hard when one person doesn't want to spend the money and the other person does. Again, that's when you have to, I think, have those conversations beforehand with what mom and dad, if they have saved money, that's great. If they have a long-term insurance policy, what is that money supposed to be spent for? Is it supposed to be spent for their care? How would you want them to treat you, if you were the senior? And it is a very tough conversation when there are two different people, but there are resources like senior living specialists who, I've done several conference calls with different family members and just trying to get everyone on the same page and go, okay, well, this is what mom or dad is needing, and these are your different options. If you want to spend this amount, these are your options. If you are more comfortable spending this amount, then we've got other options. And just so that they have all the information and can make the best informed decision, I think is the best way.
And no, you have a goal. How are you going to get to that goal? Establish a plan, know a budget, so you know what you're working with. I have several families on the private duty side where mom and dad don't even know what it's costing.
Right.
And the kids they take care of it and do not send a bill to the house. And so it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, and that's in the case a lot. Just that generation is used to live through the Depression.
Use a coupon and
do not want to spend
cheapest.
a dime. And so, that is a good solution, is just don't let them see the bill.
Right.
And you're not dishonoring them. You're just...
you're getting them the care that they need.
Right, and you don't want to cause unnecessary anxiety and stress.
I think knowing the budget really helps, because then you can work backwards.
Yes.
There's a place and a plan for everyone, no matter what your budget is. But once you know that, then you can help guide them to where they need to be.
Yeah.
And I think, too, like you said, explain the benefits. They're moving in, say they decide, we love Manchester Place, we love this group home. Well, what are the benefits? Yes, you might be spending more than you are at a different group home, but you're getting a better ratio.
2 caregivers around the clock or something like that.
One of the greatest parts about my job is when families come turn the corner and they say to me, wait a minute, this is what that rainy day fund was for. I don't have to say it, but they get it. They get it. You know what? We've saved money. Now it's time to spend it. This is care for mom and dad.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just about just having a conversation patiently, kindly, stay calm, take a deep breath. But what I have found in home care, when you do explain in a way people understand, oh, wait, you're right. We do have this savings account. And yes, mom and dad, we don't want you to wind up in a nursing home bedbound. This is going to prevent you from that nursing home that you remember as a child. Things are so much different now than they were even when we were little kids. And my grandmother used to take me to visit nursing homes as a child.
Mine too. I can still smell that
Oh, just
institutional
horrible.
food and right.
I
But
know.
think about that's adult children of elderly
Right.
parents. That's in our minds, if you're not in this industry, that's your memory and that's your perception of where you're getting ready to send your folks. Care homes, for instance, a lot of people, they don't even understand the concept of a care home.
I
They're
know.
thinking old 1970s nurses with the hat,
I
that
know.
whole scenario.
Yeah, that's totally true.
Yeah, I know.
Modern day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. So right now with COVID, and this is a concern, if I had a family member that I was wanting to tour, say, Christy, you have found 3 assisted livings and 2 group homes that are within my budget, but I don't want to get mom out and risk. I just feel better keeping her home and keeping her away from germs as possible. And then once a decision made, then I'll move her. So how can we, in this COVID-friendly environment, do those tours?
Very good question, and it depends on each different facility. So some facilities have, like Manchester Place, super strict, and I love that. I've really seen a lot, and I'm serious. I've really
Locked up tight.
I have seen during this period, there's been like Manchester who's super tight and caring about their residents versus other places that are like, oh yeah, come on in, we'll tour you, blah, blah, blah. It was very eye-opening, and I got a really good different perspective. So every place is gonna be different. And I think one tip would be, let's say you do get 3 assisted livings and 2 care homes. Let the son or daughter do a lot of the talking first. There's virtual tours, there's FaceTime tours. Even if you don't wanna go, the child doesn't wanna go tour, there's ways now where you can make decisions and see places, and then narrow it down for mom. Hey, we've got 1 assisted living mom, 1 care home. Then even if you already know where mom's going, like Brian said, with getting their independence, making them feel a part of the decision, even though you might know deep down inside. But if you give them the option to
You
feel
give
a
them
part
the-
of it,
yeah.
then that helps.
And also during that process, behind the scenes, they're vetting us, but we're vetting them. And we're not just vetting mom, but we're vetting the family's reaction to, what do you mean you're not doing tours? I want to see that house. Well, if they're going to act that way now, what are they going to act like when we serve
Exactly.
pork chops on Shabbat? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, let's all be civil, you know?
Right? Yeah, that's
so,
very true.
We're getting to know each other. It's almost like dating.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you do the groundwork for families,
Yes.
and so what is it you're looking for? And I know it's not the paint and the painting on the wall. So what are you looking for, no matter what the monetary? Tell me what a family member wants in an assisted living or group home or in private duty.
Sure. So what we first start by doing is figuring out budget, even if you have money, it's still something you're as concerned. Everyone wants, the best deals possible. Location, what's going to be a good location for all the family, and then care needs. What does the senior need? Do they need an independent living versus assisted living versus care home? And then I always email like a list of personalized questions, but some of the things that are on there are, what's the patient to caregiver ratio? What if there's an emergency? Who do you call? What if it's in the middle of the night? What if there's agitation in the middle of the night? There's a huge long list, but one of the things we always tell families is make sure you meet with the executive director or the director of nursing, somebody that is in the home, like your girl director of nursing, somebody that's there, that is there on a daily basis, that's going to be your contact once you move in there. Because I'm not going to be there once you move in.
Right.
You want to have a relationship with that family or with that community, regardless of me, because I'm not going to be there when there is a problem, and there's always going to be a problem.
Part of the dating process.
Exactly.
Communication. What is
Yes.
the communication like as they're looking at the
Yes.
home?
Yes.
Care, budget, and all of those concerns.
And you'll get a feel for it too. I mean, I've said this for years, you will get a feel, use all your senses, and you will get an inside feel of what's right and what's wrong
Yeah.
too.
And I know with Brian, with myself, we'll get calls. I do, Acappella, we do private duty, but I get calls every day. Joe, where would you, I can't afford Acappella. Where would you send your mom if you had X amount? Or, what hospice do you recommend, or what home health? And so I always say, if I can't help you, I'm going to give the name of someone that can. So somebody like you that does the groundwork and the ins and outs of the industry, you're the best resource. You guys, you're not paid. The family doesn't pay for you. And so to me, it's a very transparent,
Unbiased.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
straight across the board.
Yes.
Get their budget, get their plan, and then you know where to send them.
Yes. And then if we need to have family problems and we need someone to have, conversations with two different siblings, we're neutral. I mean, it doesn't matter to us which place you go to. I want what's best for your loved one, but we can be that neutral sounding board and say, this is what's positive about this one, and this is what's positive about this one, and kind of help, bridge the gap if there are some sibling.
And the beauty with
issues.
senior living specialists, you vetted all of the facilities, all the different places in town, whether it's private duty or AL, IL, whatever. You've done the homework. You know the good, the bad, who's been reported.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a team of 13 of us now, so we are in all the different communities. So we know what's going on right now, not 6 months ago or 4 years ago when your neighbor's husband was there or whatever.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's great. And I love that you don't tour with them. You let them do the tour. And I think that is good in a way because, they're not showing off for you. They're not on their best behavior.
I have had tours where, you think about it, when the placement agent or, it walks in and it's a high five and great to see you, how are the kids, whatever, then you have a personal relationship and the prospective family's like, they know him better.
Yeah.
Or we feel good here.
Yeah.
It's a neutral playing field.
Right, because
right.
you're going to be out of the loop.
I'm going to be
once-
out of the loop, and I want I want the families to have that relationship with y'all and feel comfortable with that, because at some point there will be something you need to talk about several times.
Always.
Always.
There's always.
know.
Yeah.
And too, sometimes there is that family that is so impossible to care for, the dynamics. Sometimes you have to say no too.
Absolutely.
And somebody that may have some kind of bipolar or mental issue, and moving them to an assisted or living group home is not going to be fair. I know putting caregivers with someone that is just going to eat those poor caregivers alive, you need to respect the home, you need to respect the employees, and that's tough because we've talked about this. We've had to fire. We've had to let some clients go that have been so impossible to deal with.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the adult children think, oh, well, we'll let Manchester Place just deal with it, or we'll let Top Hill deal with it, but realistically, if there are issues, they need to be addressed. So what do you say? You're faced with a toxic or manipulative elderly parent. So what do you do when you've got, I know my dad, he was at Walnut Place. He was in rehab, and I bet he called me 30 times a day. He needed water. Mom, Joe, I need, can you call this person? Can you do this? I'm like, Dad, I've got a job too, and I'll be there at 5, and I'll try to come by on my lunch hour. So what do you do? How do you, what advice do you give that adult child that is being taken advantage of?
Sure. Well, I'll start by saying I was really excited to be on the podcast today because this is families is something that's really close to my heart. My brother had cancer when he was 5. I was 7. He's amazing now. He's great. But he was at Children's Dallas. And I remember being 7 and being like, oh my gosh, there's all this stuff for my brother, but what about me and my sister? And so this is the whole reason why I got into social work, is to see the whole family, not just the person that you're working with. So thank you for having me on. But it's the whole family. It's wanting your adult daughter to be your adult daughter, not your caregiver. And sometimes that means not being your dad's caregiver, and having him in a place where you feel safe, where he's happy, where you can be a daughter again, and you can have different conversations with him, not just let's talk about your care needs and here's your medicine, blah blah blah. It's so easy to get wrapped up in that world and not be able to take a step back and be like, oh, hey dad, what music have you been listening to lately? Or what is going on in the news? Like, let's try, you have to take care of yourself so you can be a good caregiver, not only for your parent, but you've probably got a whole nother world, going on there. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to be able to accept some resources, I think, so that you can be a better person yourself and then a caregiver.
And for some, that adult child that wants to control so badly.
The helicopter kids.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's like the helicopter parents. I
Right.
mean, you have to let go and let the professionals help. And it is really hard.
It's really hard.
I know, it's really hard.
Yeah, Adam, our CEO, has this saying: meet people where they are.
Yes.
And it's just simple. If you have an issue, if you have a situation, let's talk about it. Communication is so important. Just meet them where they are.
And I sometimes, and I've been fired personally, a family prefers not to work with me, and or there might be a nurse that a family doesn't like for whatever reason. We had one complaint that the nurse looked too much like this guy's ex-wife, and he didn't want wanted to think about his ex-wife. So that's one thing too, is when you're working with people, you're right. Meet them where they are.
And you also have to realize there are just certain families, like the family we talked about the other day, the woman with ALS. At some point, you're not going to make everybody happy.
No.
And, you can do your best, but at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do.
Well, and we had a client that she was not coping with her disease process, alienated her children. Everyone we sent, she'd fire. And it was really because she was not in control anymore.
You want to be empathetic, and you want to understand, this woman has an ALS and the pillow 2 inches above her neck's driving her crazy, and she wants it moved and this and that. But at some point, I'm going to fail because, it's too high, it's too low. You're not going to make them happy. So, yeah.
I know.
That's a really tough situation.
It is.
Well, this has been so great. And just, if there's somebody now that the COVID is really lightening up and things are opening up, and they are looking at, now is time to start thinking about decisions. How can they reach you, Christy?
Oh, sure. My phone number is 214-418-9081. Senior Living Specialist is our website. Social media. We have a Facebook page. www.seniorlivingspecialist with an S is our website, and all of our contact numbers are on there. So yeah, would love to help anything.
You're all over DFW.
Yes, we are all over DFW. Plano, Frisco, McKinney, Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, Mid-Cities. We are all over, and there's a team of 13 of us now. So definitely somebody that can help get any process started, or any resources, elder care attorneys to have these power of attorney decisions, or caregivers, anything. We don't just do placements. We have a lot of things.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is in the industry, there are people that really care about the community, the senior living community, and care. And we are all advocates for each other.
Yeah.
There's always something that everybody could do. We don't know all the answers, and we lean on people like you guys. Brian, how can we reach you if somebody has questions about Manchester or Cambridge Caregivers?
ManchesterLiving.com, CambridgeCaregivers.com. My telephone number is 214-649-9922.
Thank you guys so much. It's been a great show. I want to have you back again. And Brian, we love having you. Captain Brian, do a great job together, and just have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.